Hey everybody, welcome back, and sorry again for our extended absence. We had midterms, and as always, school comes first. Nick, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm just chilling. And another day in the life of a Florida man. Same
Yeah,
thing with you.
yeah, happy Friday. It's a good life. Just
Oh,
gonna probably go to the Jacksonville Bengals game. My opponent, to make a long story short, is starting Blake Bortles because I picked up three of the free agent quarterbacks. So I'm going to go there, and it's also the Jacksonville State Fair, so I'll probably go there this weekend as well. Because we've been gone for a while and a lot has happened with the NFL trade deadline, Zeke, Luck, there's a ton of things to touch on. And we're going to get to all that. We're going to try to steer clear of players on bye weeks just because there's so much material to cover today. But before we get into football, we promised you guys a theme song, and our boy Sean Doherty, Sean D, you can find him on any form of social media. What up, Sean? Shout out. He delivered it a few days ago. Now, Nick hasn't heard this yet either, so we're going to get him to react live. But it's only about a minute long, so for all of your enjoyment, here is the new official theme song to the New Guys podcast.
Yeah. New Guys coming to you live. You could bet this like Jerome. New Guys are men of steel. Best coverage in the league. Prime Reavers on the field. Don't know better ask. Do you Nick? The hype is real. Gurus with the knowledge. You can check the mass appeal. They gon' turn your fantasies into dollar bills. Making dynasties from drafts like the Spurs when they build. Want the bragging rights and titles at your work. Let the new guys serve the wisdom to you first. I ain't advertising, just kicking facts. They turn average Joes to Drakes cause they winning back to backs. So sit back, relax, all ears when they speak. And rain on competition with anything they leak. Make leagues joy gray like Ramsey did Reek. Passing off the mic, I'm out here, peace.
That was amazing. Couldn't have asked for anything more perfect. We thank you, Sean, for
now
your
we're
time.
official, though. You realize that?
Now we're official, yeah. So we've got that for you every week to look forward to now. And he just did a great job. He got in the studio over the weekend, sent it to me right away, and ton of props, Sean. It came out great. That is perfect. We're gonna try. If we have the time, we're gonna try and piece together like a clip video or a montage. But that might be difficult since we stream these podcasts and we're not together. But yeah, we're gonna open up with that on a weekly basis. And now we're ready to get into football. I guess the best thing to start off with would be last night's game. Jets-Bills division game, and the Jets won 34-21. Nick, did you have any takeaways from this game?
I can't tell if the Bills are actually a bad team or if the Jets are a good team. I thought Buffalo was going to smoke them yesterday. I didn't think it was going to be close, but it was the other way around. I was starting to think Buffalo was legit, too. I thought they had a monster defense and they could actually, make the playoffs this year. But after getting tossed around by the Jets yesterday and Matt Forte, I don't know.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what the Jets are doing either. I thought they were bound for 1-15 or 2-14, but they actually have, they have 4 wins now, don't they?
They have 4 wins now, yeah, with a ton of games to go. I had a few takeaways from this. Matt Forte sort of turned the clock back. 14 carries, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns. I've been advocating that Bilal Powell is going to come on as the season progresses, and Matt Forte is making that really difficult to back up. So at this point, he's been the better back to own the last handful of weeks. I'd say if you have Forte, keep rolling him out. The Jets aren't playoff contenders, but they're more legit than not, I'd say. They're definitely performing on both ends of the field a lot better than we expected entering the season. Austin Seferian-Jenkins keeps getting robbed of touchdowns. So if you have him, just hold out on that. They're coming. For the Bills, I did have a few takeaways. Tyrod Taylor had a 3-touchdown night, most of which came in garbage time, which still counts. But that O-line and Tyrod holding the ball a little too long combined to him getting sacked, I believe, 7 times. If that's going to continue to be the case, you're not going to feel great playing Tyrod. But part of that is a lack of having playmakers. And starting next week, most likely, they'll have Kelvin Benjamin back. So I think Tyrod, with a much softer schedule down the road, a new massive weapon to target, I think the Bills will be okay. Whether or not they make playoffs is yet to be seen. But I think Tyrod's value increases from here on out. I think Kelvin's value stays about the same as it was in Carolina. But yeah, if you have any of the Jets running backs, I'd lean with Forte until you see a change of the guard. And for the Bills, although Deontay Thompson has had 2 great weeks out of the last 3, he's a speedster. For the most part of his career, he's been held under 25 catches a year. And that's just because of a lack of playmakers. When the Bills get Charles Clay back, and once Kelvin Benjamin is inserted into the lineups, I feel like Thompson's value is going to go down the drain. So I wouldn't waste a claim on him if you're looking at the numbers and debating that. But those were my takeaways from this game. Did you have anything else about this?
Tyrod has blown out the last few weeks. He's actually proving to be a fantasy caliber quarterback. So good for him. And yeah, I'd say if you have him, keep starting him or start to start him.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks, and then most likely this week after that performance, with 6 teams on a bye, I believe, he's been, and probably this week will be as well, a top 10 quarterback. So if you have him, you're feeling great. Hopefully you started him. I made the mistake of benching him, but I have Russell Wilson against Washington, so that should be a decent performance as well. But since we touched on Kelvin Benjamin, I feel like we should address other things that happened during the NFL trade deadline. What is your main takeaways from the Ajayi trade to Philadelphia on both ends for Miami and Philly?
I think it definitely adds a new weapon to an already explosive Eagles offense. They have a bunch of playmakers already. And the one thing they were really missing was shiftier running back. You know, they have LeGarrette Blount. He's the power guy, but I don't know. It adds a new dynamic to that offense. For the Dolphins, I don't know. They're a struggling offense. I don't really see anyone overtaking or putting on that much of a role in the running back committee. I don't think Kenyon Drake will do too much. Mm-hmm. So obviously it has a big impact for the Eagles, but not much for the Dolphins.
Okay. Yeah, if Ajayi couldn't get it done in Miami, I don't think Drake or Williams will be able to. They'll both see more snaps, more targets, more rushes. As for producing, that O-line hasn't been very good. Ajayi was getting hit at the line of scrimmage or behind it on a very consistent basis. So I went and grabbed Drake in one league. I think he'll have value. Just temper your expectations there. Now, how do you see the split going? Because in Philly, they said that Blount is still going to be the lead back. Do you think that's just a matter of time before that changes? Or
yeah, I think he just needs to figure out the playbook, and then it will be a matter of time. But that approach makes sense. You know, you might as well work him in. Mm-hmm. But I think eventually he'll just prove to be the better back and better for that offense, and he'll overtake Blount.
I think this Barry Smallwood, if you have him, you could wait a week or two, but I personally dropped him in the one league I had him. There were better options out there, so, scan your waiver wire, see what's out there. As for this week, if you're one of the few owners that has both Blount and Ajayi, do you play both, neither, or if you had to choose one, which one?
I'd probably stay away from both. Mm-hmm. But if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with Ajayi still. Even if he's not the head guy, I'm still sure he's going to be bound to get some carries this week. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'd want to monitor the situation on like ESPN or something, but I'd still go with Ajayi. Maybe he has a breakout game one, similar to what Adrian Peterson did a few weeks ago.
Okay. That's fair, yeah. I think Ajayi is the better back. If you had to choose one, talent usually prevails, so I agree with that. I guess let's step onto one of the biggest headaches of this fantasy season. Ezekiel Elliott is now playing Week 9, and this has been the biggest annoyance and headache for every Zeke owner, anyone that's stashed any of the 3 guys behind him. But As of right now, Ezekiel Elliott will be playing Week 9. Beyond that, we don't know. Now, Nick owns Zeke. I just traded Darren McFadden, and I stashed Rod Smith in one league. Let me get your opinion as a Zeke owner, Nick. How confident are you that he's going to play for the rest of the season?
Can anyone be confident in times like this? I mean, every week they say, I find out 2 days before if he's playing or not.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm confident he plays the rest of the season.
Okay.
Not too confident, but there's just so many appeals and so many processes that could go in the court, and every single week he does a new thing and just gets it. And they keep saying, this is it, this is his last chance, but obviously it's not his last chance because it's just a week. So
it just keeps happening.
I'm not stressing about it. I haven't even traded for a capable backup yet, so if he goes down, I'm screwed, but I'm rolling with him still.
Now, a lot of people feel like Darren McFadden is the best back out of the 3 behind Zeke. The coaches come out and said Alfred Morris will start when and if Zeke's suspension kicks in. And I know in Dallas, a lot of them are high talent-wise on Rod Smith. If you could only roster one, which one would you like to own?
I actually like Rod Smith the most, probably.
I love that you said that.
I like Rod Smith a lot. I watched him in preseason, and he was awesome, dude. He was phenomenal in preseason. He had an awesome he wasn't even gonna make the roster, but then he came to play in the preseason games, and I don't know, they kept him, and he's hanging around. I don't know what number he is in the depth chart right now, but I think if Zeke were to go down this week, in the next few weeks, he would eventually become the number 1 back.
Okay.
People would see.
So according to Dallas, behind Zeke, if he's out, it would be Morris. Oh, I'm echoing. Am I echoing on your end?
Yeah, I can really hear you.
It was echoing a little. Hopefully it'll stop. Anyways, behind Zeke, or if he's out, they say it's Morris, Rod Smith, McFadden. I think McFadden's the best pass catcher, and with 2 of those 3 being vets, I think Rod Smith the first week or 2 of the pending suspension will get limited snaps. But they want someone to emerge there, and if one of them were to, I agree, I think it would probably be Rod Smith. At this point in their careers, you know what McFadden is and you know what Morris is. Rod Smith, they're very high up on him, and they're not going to take anyone that runs away with the job out. So it's really just going to be who hits the ground running. With limited exposure, I don't think it will be Rod Smith in the first few weeks, but in the tail end of that suspension, I think he will be the back to own. Although he's listed as 3rd on the depth chart, I think just familiarity with the offense, better in the passing game. I think for the immediate future, McFadden is actually the guy to own. But again, nobody knows for certain, and we'll see how that shakes out. There were a lot of season-ending injuries that have occurred over the last couple of days, unfortunately. I guess we'll start with the most obvious one. Andrew Luck has been placed on IR. Now, this has kind of been what everyone's thought was going to happen in the last few weeks. You know, it just seemed less and less likely that he'd have any impact this season. Are there any real takeaways for this?
I mean, so I listened to Colin Cowherd a lot, and he had a pretty interesting theory on it. So Chris Ballard, that's the Colts' new GM, he got hired in January of last year, and this whole injury situation has been a mess. You know, you never knew what he was doing. He came back for a few days, and yada, yada, yada. Andrew Luck had surgery the same month that Chris Ballard got hired. They said it was a 9 to 12-month recovery, so people just assumed it'd be 9 months and he'd be ready for the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think Chris Ballard kind of knew that it was going to take longer, and I think he's known for a while now that Andrew Luck was not going to be stepping on this field this season.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he kept Chuck Pagano around for a year. You know, he'll keep him around for this year. We'll get 3-4 wins. We'll get a top 5 pick. I think he goes out and he gets Andrew Luck, an offensive-minded head coach. They'll trade that top 5 pick because we don't need a quarterback, and a lot of people are going to need one. So we'll trade back and get a few more first-rounders.
Mm-hmm.
If Jacoby Brissett plays decent this year, we could trade him for a pick and just get Andrew Luck healthy. So I think this will be known as the lost year for the Colts, but I think it could lead to success in the next few years.
Okay. I sort of disagree about trading Brissett because he would be a great backup, and with Luck's health concerns,
Yeah,
you're going to want a viable backup behind him.
but teams pay well for a good backup. Look at AJ McCarron and who's about to get a payday next year or whatever, and Jimmy Garoppolo played 3 games and you just got traded for a second round pick. So
That's true. Another quarterback out for the year, unfortunately, and this was a shock to everyone. Deshaun Watson tore his ACL, which is pretty heartbreaking for Houston, considering there were Rookie of the Year discussions, potential MVP discussions. He was really having a career year as a rookie, and this is his opposite ACL, but his second ACL injury. If you go back to college. It looks like Tom Savage is going to be stepping in there. I feel like you have to downgrade all of the skill players in Houston, every one of them. I personally thought Will Fuller was very fluky to begin with, so I don't think Savage is anywhere near as accurate or could throw as far. I think Fuller is very risky going forward, and just volume alone, Hopkins will still have value, and you're probably starting him every week as well. But you don't feel great about it. Did you have any major takeaways there?
I think Fuller's value is completely gone. What do you have? 12 catches and like 7 of them are touchdowns or something?
A ridiculously unsustainable rate.
You already couldn't rely on that, and now with Tom Savage, you can't even throw the ball 25 yards. I don't think he has any value.
Okay.
Christian Hopkins is still a good wide receiver, but last year when he had that whole quarterback mess with Osweiler, he was invaluable. So you have to wait and see with him a few weeks. I'd still continue to start him though, just because he's been balling out this year. But yeah, that whole offense just took an awful slide down.
Now this is a great transition, totally unplanned because you just mentioned him. That's how smart of a man Nick is. You're probably looking for replacement quarterbacks now, and not for the long term, but how would you feel about Brock Osweiler in Denver starting this week over Simeon?
Are you talking about from a fantasy perspective or a football perspective?
Both.
I mean, it's like cool how he's back where he started. It's kind of funny, but I'd stay away from him in fantasy for a while probably.
I'd agree, and if you have Demaryius Thomas and you've been starting him every week, you're probably still starting him because, to be honest, Osweiler can't be much worse than Simeon has been the last few weeks. But yeah, I don't think that's a good fill-in, nor do I think Savage is a good replacement if you were planning on starting Watson and unfortunately lost him. But just to name a couple good streaming options, Jared Goff is playing the Giants, Janoris Jenkins is suspended, and although he's been hit or miss throughout this season, I'd say it's a pretty good matchup for Goff. So if you're looking for a streamer, he's someone to consider out there.
40%'s not the worst streaming option either. I know we just touched on him. It's a decent amount of rushing touchdowns, so I don't know.
And he's getting comfortable with Jack Doyle there.
Yeah, Jack Doyle. Oh wow, that was crazy last week.
It was unfortunate for me last week, but yeah, they balled out together last week. Any other good quarterback streamers coming to mind this week? Flacco, it looks like will play. I know he had concussion symptoms, but he's probably playing this week. I don't feel great about that, but just worth mentioning because if you're in a deeper league, you might be looking deep into unproven or risky territory. So that he's someone that can air it out. Has Macklin there. Or no, not Macklin. Has Wallace there, right?
Yeah.
So,
if you're in a deep league, I don't know, maybe Drew Stanton going against San Fran.
Okay. And they're going to want to run a lot. So if you're a Peterson owner, fire him up this week. So, yeah, those are just a couple fill-in quarterbacks. And I guess let's touch on some tight end streamers because I know Delaney Walker is probably a game-time decision at this point, and Jordan Reed, I think, is already rolled out. So you might be looking for a tight end streamer. Vernon Davis has filled in pretty nice as
Yeah.
has Tyler Croft in Cincinnati. Both those teams utilize the tight end a lot, especially around the red zone. So I feel like those are probably your two best streaming options, either Tyler Croft or Vernon Davis for this week. And then Croft potentially going forward because Eifert's already out for the year.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe Jared Cooks, if he's available on your waiver wire. He's been doing okay this year.
Yeah, he's having a lot better year this year than he did over in Green Bay.
Yeah, definitely.
I figured it would probably be a good idea to touch on some new guys. You see what I did there? Some guys that are either coming back this week, coming back in the near future, or making their debut this week. So I guess we'll start, since Flacco was mentioned, we'll start in Baltimore. Within the next 2, maybe 3 weeks, Danny Woodhead should be coming back. But Alex Collins has really emerged there. Do you think he is a viable stash at this point? Would you wait a few weeks to see how the split carries over? Does it depend PPR, non-PPR?
Yeah,
What's your
I
take on
think
Woodhead?
stash for now, just to see how things go.
Mhm.
Wouldn't be tossing into your starting lineup anytime soon, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you keep him on the bottom of your roster, maybe you have like an Andrew Luck or Deshaun Watson, someone who you can drop now.
Mhm.
You put him in. I don't know. Maybe it'll pay off.
Now, if you're fighting to get into the playoffs, you're probably going to need to make a lot of moves over the next few weeks. You're probably going to need that spot for players that are playing this week, next week. Fill your buys. But if you're 6-2, 7-1, even 5-3, and you have some flexibility there, or you're past most of your buys, it's a good stash. Now, someone that I don't think is a very good stash, a lot of people will disagree on that. Josh Gordon has been reinstated conditionally and would be set to make his debut if everything goes as planned in week 13, which is, for most leagues, the week before playoffs begin. Any interest in Josh Gordon?
I was on him before last year's draft. I thought maybe he could have, return to what he was before the suspensions, but at this point, I don't think so. I think it's only a matter of time before he gets suspended again, or even if he doesn't, who's he working with at quarterback? They switch their quarterback 3 times a game. None of them can really throw the ball anyway. So maybe if you're like first place in your league or something, if you only have 1 or 2 losses, you can stash him on your bench, but I wouldn't probably go anywhere near him.
Okay. You have to keep in mind, it's been almost 3 full years since his last NFL snap. And I know if you look 4 years ago when he led the league in receiving yards, along with 9 touchdowns and over 1,600 yards, you think, why not? Well, it's been 3 years. He's been in and out of rehab. And he impressed Goodell. He was in an extended rehab. He's clean now, but that's a long absence. He's going to be rusty. And even the few games he played before his short season came to an end, the last time he was around the NFL, he really wasn't doing too much, and his quarterback play was Johnny Manziel. Now he's looking at Deshaun Kaiser, which really isn't an upgrade. You don't feel confident in any of the quarterback play in Cleveland. So to give a little example, in the one league I am 6-2 in, I stashed Josh Gordon when the news came out, and about 24 hours later, I dropped him for the next guy we're going to get into right here, who's Corey Davis. Corey Davis is set to return this week, and if you look at what he did in week 1, 6 receptions, 69 yards, no touchdown, but he was all over the field in that game. He practiced fully most this week, and Eric Decker, Rashad Matthews seem to be fading fast, and Delaney Walker might not even play this week. So I think that is a great stash. I don't know if you're going to play him this week. You're going to want to see his snap count, let him shake off some rust. But going forward, I feel like he's going to be a decent potential wide receiver too going forward with their schedule and Mariota's go-to guy, excluding Delaney Walker from that. How do you feel about Corey Davis?
He had an awesome week one. I know the stat line doesn't really show it too much, but he balled out that game. He was all over the field, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wouldn't start him this week, and probably not for the next couple weeks. But again, by the time playoffs come around, if you stash him and Tennessee's trying to make a playoff run, he could help you out down the line, maybe week 13, week 14. So I think, again, he'd definitely be a good person to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if he's available and you have the space, go grab him. If you have a need at receiver, even if you're waiting a week or two to deploy him, he could be a breakout candidate in the tail end of this season, fantasy season. So go out and grab him. And I just want to mention another rookie receiver while we're on the subject. And for the three of you listening to this may or may not be the first time you're hearing about this guy, but this receiver will arguably be the best receiver on his roster and was arguably the best receiver during the preseason. And that's Dede Westbrook. He was on IR, but he's set to make his return most likely this week. And with Allen Robinson gone there, Lewis banged up, Hearns really hasn't done much or been consistent. I know Blake Bortles is the quarterback there, and you don't feel great about that, but do you think there's any chance Dede Westbrook emerges? Because he had a 100-yard game in the preseason, and granted, it's preseason, but he proved to have some playmaking ability, some speed, good hands, and I went to one of the games and really was in awe from what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're down there in Jacksonville, so you might be hearing a lot of chatter about this guy.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said you might be hearing the name for the first time, some of you, but Dede Westbrook.
He definitely had that good preseason game, and I think he definitely has maybe a bright future. I don't know about this season, just to the lack of passing that happens in that offense. You know, It's mostly give the ball to Leonard Fournette and see what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure about this year if he'll do that much, just because I don't think any wide receivers will step up really for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see maybe next year or something if they get a new quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Out of those three receivers we mentioned, if in order, if you had to choose, I think I'd go Corey Davis, Dede Westbrook, just because he's at least definitely returning, and then Josh Gordon in that order.
Yeah, I agree with that order. That's probably sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. Two other things I want to touch on briefly, both in relation to Seattle. They really haven't had a running game, and the last couple weeks, two receivers outside of Doug Baldwin have been balling out, and that would be Tyler Lockett and Paul Richardson. Odds are both of them were available up until this past waiver period, and odds are some of them might still be available. If you had to choose one of them, who do you prefer and why?
I choose one. I think I'd go with Richardson. I just think the type of receiver he is, he'll get more volume with targets maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about either though, just because that game with the Texans, that was last week, right?
Yeah, I believe that was last week's game.
Yeah, that was a shootout game. I think everyone was getting targets on both teams.
Yeah.
You know, you looked at both teams and there were 10 guys who had over 10 fantasy points. So I think everyone just had a day on offense there. So I don't know how much that can be used to predict the future.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. I still think Doug Baldwin's obviously the guy there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd go with Richardson over Lockett, but still, I'm not really too comfortable with either of them.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Baldwin and Jimmy Graham are the two main go-to guys for Russell Wilson there. You know, they're worth a play if you're struggling with buys or something, but I agree, don't go nuts to go out and get either of them. And the other thing in Seattle I wanted to touch on is Pete Carroll says they're going to give significant run this week to Eddie Lacy. And I know they've really just been giving every back there about 10 carries, and no one's really done anything with them. Do you have any confidence in this, any belief in this, or is this just coach talk?
I mean, maybe if they commit to him, that's the thing. They're not really committed to a guy. They're kind of giving this guy 10 and this guy 10 and the other guy 10 and kind of just seeing who'll step up. I think they just need to commit to one guy for one game and see, look, what can you do with it? Like, here's your shot to get 25 carries.
Mm-hmm.
So they give Eddie Lacy a chance. If they give him 25 carries or something, or even just 20, and I think he could prove it. Like, I don't know, take on kind of a Marshawn Lynch role that they've been missing for the last few years.
Mm-hmm. And it would be nice if the O-line could perform a little bit better. But yeah, no one's run away with the job, and it sounds like they're going to commit to him this week. If they actually do it, it would be nice to see. Establish the run, take some pressure off Wilson, but that'll play out this week, and we'll know more afterwards.
They did just improve the line, though. They traded for DeJuan Brown, the left tackle from the Texans, so
it might take a week or two for them to gel, but I agree. Yeah, ultimately that should improve the line. And it's funny you mentioned Marshawn Lynch. He's back from his suspension this week, and neither Washington nor Richard really ran away with the job last week. No one really overly impressed. Do you think it's immediately Marshawn's job again? Do you think it's a committee you want to... I think it's a committee you want to completely avoid, to be honest. That's just my opinion of it, but...
Yeah, I think Marshawn definitely gets the most carries, but he doesn't really prove anything. He'll probably stay away.
Mm-hmm. And the last person I really wanted to touch on that comes to mind is my Giants, because they're my Giants. Sterling Shepard's going to be playing this week. If you have him, I feel like you're playing him. He's going to be the best receiver there, and he and Evan Ingram are going to feast on targets all game. So I think Shepard's a good play this week and going forward as well, just because of a lack of receivers there. And I know the Rams' defense has been pretty good, but the Giants are home. They're coming off a bye, and really, who else is there? So, do you have a different opinion on that?
I think he works a flex start this week. He's the one guy, and he did solid last year as the two guy behind Adele. So I think if you have him, why not take a flyer on him if you're in need of a flex? That could be a good option.
Perfect. And that's really all I had. Is there anyone, any team, anything specific you wanted to touch on?
Did we talk about Pierre Garçon?
We did not. Thank you. Pierre Garçon, unfortunately, is also out for the year with a neck injury. So San Fran just lost their top receiver. They also just traded for Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not playing this week and probably not going to play for a couple weeks. But that is a big loss for them as well as for any Garçon owners, because he's been feasting on targets and has been a top 15 guy for most of the year. Do you think anyone emerges there? I think Carlos Hyde's value increases just because they're probably going to lean on the run a little more, and maybe Matt Breida as well. They might try to just run, and see what they have in him as well. I just think they're going to rely heavily on the run, especially while Garoppolo gets acclimated with the offense. So.
I think it all depends on when Garoppolo steps in. I've seen a couple of reports saying they're not sure if they want to play him at all this year. I think that's just BS. I don't think that's happening. I think they'll play him in the next few weeks.
I think they should to see what they have in him.
Yeah, I think once he comes in and takes over the starting job, that whole offense will definitely be an improvement over Brian Hoyer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure about any of the receivers, but I think Carlos Hyde will definitely benefit from this.
All right, well, there you have it. Carlos Hyde, activate him. Breida, once again, a viable stash. And Garoppolo, don't waste your time, at least not this season. Anything else? I think Golden Tate's returning.
Yeah.
If you have him, you're playing him. Marvin Jones has balled out the last few weeks. If you have him, I feel like he'll draw easier coverage. You're still probably playing him. I guess since it's the Monday night and, we're just briefly touching on the lines, let's also briefly touch on the Packers. Ty Montgomery or Aaron Jones?
I kind of like Aaron Jones. I think he's more of the workhorse back that they could use going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially for the rest of this season, they're going to have a lack of a passing offense. They're going to need to rely on the run.
Mm-hmm.
If Aaron Jones can prove it, then he'll be the guy going forward.
I agree. I think Aaron Jones is going to be the guy going forward, and the Packers will be running the ball a lot more. I think for the Packers receivers, the best option going forward, personally, I think would be Devontae Adams. Most targets, most routes run. You no longer have the chemistry between Rodgers and Jordy will still probably draw more shadow coverage and the best corners for the next handful of weeks. I think while Jordy's probably going to take a significant hit because of Hundley, I think Devontae Adams, he's not going to be a wide receiver 1 or 2 or anything. His value's definitely not going to increase, but I don't think he's going to drop off anywhere near as much as a lot of analysts predict. I think out of all of the receivers on Green Bay, Devontae Adams would be the best one going forward.
I could agree with that. I'd probably stay away from all of them personally, just because of the quarterback situation. But yeah, I could see Adams being the best.
And I know one more thing, just since we're touching on Devontae's, we keep extending this. It's been a few weeks. I feel like we should touch any and everything we can. Just while we're on Devontae Parker is making his return. And Kenny Stills has had 2 good weeks, but the best of which was with Matt Moore, who's not playing. Jay Cutler is also returning. The Dolphins are a mess. Really, the only consistent options have been Jarvis Landry, especially in PPR, and Devontae Parker before he got hurt. So outside of Jarvis Landry, is there anybody you like going forward there?
Not really. I don't know. I think this is the worst offense in the league, and we touched on it before. They just lost their best offensive weapon, JHI. So Devontae Parker was doing pretty good at the beginning of the season. So maybe in a few weeks, if he could show something, I don't even know who they'll have a quarterback then. It'll still be Jay or Matt Moore or whatever. But for now, Jarvis Landry is the only guy that I would start.
To be honest, I'm probably playing both Devontaes in one league, and I do not feel great about it.
I would not feel great about that either.
It's Melvin Gordon, Tariq Cohen are both on buys. Alshon Jeffrey is against Denver. So I really, and Rex Burkhead is also on a buy, so I just really don't have any better options. I'm playing both Devontaes, and I don't feel good about it, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So, all right, I guess we will wrap it up now, unless anything else coming to mind. Last second thoughts.
I think that's good.
All right, perfect. Well, I hope this was insightful for all of you. Best of luck this week, week 9, with your lineups, and we will see you next week.
Yep,